Okay. Thought you might want to know this. I'm going to share this statement with you in a moment, but a group of leading Republican national security experts, including former Homeland Security Secretary Tom Ridge. Remember him from the Bush administration? He's the one that came up with the candy-colored streamlined flake baby or something like that. Remember, it was the colorful warning of red and yellow, or no, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, I guess. And as the colors advanced through the rainbow from the blue to the red, it was an indication of the level of security that was being applied here in the United States for fear of another terror attack, like the one that occurred in Lower Manhattan on September 11th, 2001, right? But that Tom Ridge, he is among a group of Republican national security experts who are telling congressional Republicans today to demand, grow a pair, you cowardly bastards, and demand that Trump concede the election and immediately begin the transition to President Biden and his administration. The statement was signed by more than 100 Republican leaders, names of whom we would recognize, probably half of them. But the statement included this, quote, President Trump's refusal to permit the presidential transition poses significant risks to our national security at a time when the United States confronts a global pandemic and faces serious threats from global adversaries, terrorist groups, and other forces, end quote. They left out domestic in front of terrorist groups, but I digress. Anyway, the signers include the aforementioned Tom Ridge. Who else? Former CIA Director Michael Hayden, John Negroponte, that miserable son of a bitch who assisted in committing genocide against the people of Central America. You remember Negroponte I think it was in the Reagan administration, and then he wound up in the Bush administration as an advocate for torture. He was at one time the director of national intelligence for George W. Bush. Some of these names still give me just the cold shivers to think that these killers, these anti-small d democratic advocates for military dictatorships in countries where capitalism hadn't quite gotten a stranglehold, to see them demanding that Trump stand back, let the new administration in, is it's kind of unnerving to me. Not because they're saying this because it's a Biden administration. I don't think Biden holds any deep respect for these Nazi bastards either. But because it indicates that Trump is so, well, what's the word? Come on, Mike. So antithetical to any kind of self-rule or democracy, small d, or any kind of representative government, that these former neo-fascists have got to come out of the woodwork and demand that he leave? Wow. Who knew? Anyway, the message that these more than 100 Republican luminaries signed called on Republican leaders, especially those in Congress, to publicly demand that President Trump cease his anti-democratic assault on the integrity of the presidential election, end quote. That's some pretty strong stuff. Do you think it'll have any effect on the orange asshole and his crappy family and his sycophants and his fillators? Do you think they'll pay any attention to this? They're not the target. The target are the so-called Republican leaders in the U.S. Congress, both House and Senate, to stand up on their hind legs and act like adults. They're not going to do it, though. Anyway, as you know, Trump has refused to acknowledge his defeat, yada, 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 continues to wage his clamorous Rudy Giuliani bat boy unsuccessful bid to overturn the election's outcome in several key states that turned the race in Biden's favor. Now, it is now estimated that Biden is going to whip this orange son of a bitch's ass by about 6 or 7 million votes. Yeah, go ahead, Trump, you maniac. Anyway, the statement's signers, the statement I'm going to read to you in a minute, urged Republican leaders to, quote, strongly oppose Trump's dangerous and extra-legal efforts to threaten and intimidate state officials in order to prevent a vote by the Electoral College, end quote. I mean, this is pretty strong stuff. I'm surprised, in a way, that it took these so-called Republican luminaries, some of whom are Nazi son of a bitches down to their bottoms of their feet, but it took them this long to come up with this statement. And asked about the statement from all these former officials, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch the Turtle McConnell's office, referred comments today, referred questioners to comments he made last week, dismissing requests to speak out. Yeah, the turtle's not going to say shit if he had a mouth full of it, which he does 90% of the time. Anyway, McConnell told reporters last Tuesday, quote, in all of these presidential elections, we go through this process. What we say about it is frankly irrelevant. All of it will happen right on time, and we will swear in the next administration on January 20th, end quote. Blah, 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 blah. You slobby bastard, you. And then a spokesperson for the House Minority Leader, this little rat, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican of California, nobody responded to a request from the Washington Post for comment. And nobody at the White House did either. About just a comment about the statement. Nah, no, we're not going to say shit. Nah. Anyway, this statement was released hours before officials in Michigan were scheduled to vote on whether to certify election results in that state that showed Biden defeated Trump by more than 150,000 votes. And last week, the orange bastard personally called a county canvass board official in Wayne County, Michigan, which is home to Detroit. And that official subsequently tried to rescind her vote to certify results there. I mean, what is it Trump says to these people? If there's a woman, what does he say? Bitch, if you don't do what I tell you, I'll grab you by your genitals and drag you around D.C. I mean, what does he say to these people? This unconscionable bastard. The statement from the 100 Republicans also says this, quote, President Trump's continued efforts to cast doubt on the validity of the election and to interfere in state electoral processes undermines our democracy and risks doing long-term damage to our institutions, end quote. No shit. Well, I don't know. I want to read it to you in a second. Anyway, the organizers of today's statement, oh, and by the way, by the time you hear this, Michigan and whoever else is supposed to certify today will have either certified or given in to the orange bastard's demands of further delays. By the time you hear this, we'll know, won't we? But anyway, the organizers of this morning's statement led previous efforts before the election to try to persuade Republican national security experts and others to support Biden over Trump. I mean, it didn't take the election to tell these Republican national security experts that this son of a bitch, Donald Trump, was trying to destroy the nation, put the whole country at risk. What, they just woke up this morning? That's why statements like this are so goddamn bogus. What took you guys so long? and gals, you guys and gals, because women and men were signers of this thing. Anyway, among other initiatives, according to the Washington Post, this group published a newspaper ad signed by many of the same names that appeared on Monday's statement. It was included in the statement, the ad. The organizers said they were motivated by concerns that Republican leaders have declined to tell Trump to get the fuck out of town, to stand down. What the hell is he doing? Republican leaders? These are not leaders. These are scum. These are cowardly little bastards who I hope, I know this is a hope against hope, but I hope that the voters who put these swine in office will remove them, if for no other reason, because they don't have the dignity or the courage or the moral fiber or the ethical standards God gave a pissant, if there were a God. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, Ken Weinstein, who's a former U.S. attorney for D.C., and later served in George W. Bush's administration. He was Assistant Attorney General for National Security. This guy, Ken Weinstein, said this, quote, "It was a sense of both alarm that the President of the United States is trying to undermine our election and disappointment that so many Republican leaders are abetting that effort, either with active support or with their silence," end quote. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike, say it again. What is wrong with these people? Yeah. And then another organizer to put this statement together, a guy named John Bellinger III, said that he encouraged the statement out of dismay that many congressional Republican leaders have remained silent. And this guy, Bellinger, served as legal advisor to the National Security Council and the State Department during the George W. Bush era, when that war criminal was president of the United States. This is what's amazing to me. So many of these people served under an absolute war criminal by our definition. And they didn't say anything then. What is prompting them to say something now? It's a good question, Mike. Yeah, I wish I had an answer. Negroponte, who served, it says here he served under 9 successive presidents. Well, 9? Who in the hell could that be? Does he go all the way back to who? Eisenhower? Anyway, he said of Trump's legal team, quote, "They're in denial about the loss and therefore not allowing the transition to go forward," end quote. He added, quote, "Every day that's lost, it's not only unfair to the new administration, it's harmful to the country and our national security," end quote. He added, "Blocking the transition is wrong-headed and immature," end quote. Oh, Jesus Christ. Really, guys? Wrong-headed and immature. But when you served George W. Bush and he invaded a country that did nothing to us under false pretenses, lies, deception, and then which resulted in the murder, the death, the killing of 1.5 million or 2 million men, women, and children, and disrupted the entire Middle East and sent thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people into political exile, refugees, you son of a bitches said nothing. Well, you're saying something now, which, like I said a second ago, is scary on its surface. But if we dig a little bit deeper into why they're saying it now, I hit a deep mine shaft. I don't know what's down there. Scary. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.